Hello, June Christy fans and the uninitiated. Welcome, weary traveller, for you have travelled far to come here looking for answers. I've been a June Christy fan since the late 90s, and there's actually less online about her today than there was, say, in the year 2000. It's frustrating, and I want this YouTube channel to remedy that frustration. I'm a bit of a magpie. I've collected a lot of things over the years. Rare recordings and things I can surprise you with, but also anecdotes and memories, things that have been lost. There are defunct websites that I was able to save, forums, posts, screenshots. It's all a little bit creepy. It's all a little bit stalkerish. Someone had to do it. If there's someone out there watching this video who's felt frustrated that there just isn't enough about June online, I want to tell you that all is about to change. And I know that's quite a big statement to make, but I'm not boasting, I'm not posturing. I promise you, this is a watershed moment for June Christy. It's not about me, it's not about me being some sort of celebrity or something. I'm not a jazz historian. There are far more qualified people to be doing this, but I'm sitting on a great deal of research. It surprises me because I never saw myself as anybody doing research. I was just a fan continually right-clicking and saving, right-click, save, right-click, save, right-click, save, cha-cha-cha. So I've got a lot to share. This video in particular is going to be exciting because I'm going to show you something that hasn't been seen for 20 years. And in just one letter that I'm going to read you, so much is going to be illuminated. And I've got so much more to share, but just one letter. This is the letter. When I read this letter, if like me, you've just been desperate to hear more about June Christy, learn more about her, just this one letter is going to blow your mind. I had this first video for this channel all planned out. It was going to be an introductory video all about the jazz singer June Christy, how tragically overlooked she is. Winner of Downbeat magazine, Big Band Girl Singer 4 times, her 11 years of solo albums with record publishing giant Capitol Records. Her iconic album and titular song, Something Cool, covered by the likes of Judy Garland, no less, albeit it was an outtake from Judy's CBS show, but still, Judy Garland. So I planned this short introductory video for the uninitiated, each chapter of her career, including her semi-retirement. So this short little video was going to be an idiot's guide to June Christy. And then I changed my mind. I mean, you're still getting the idiot, but just not the guide. I changed my plans. There's now this sense of urgency to do something else, to thank somebody very special. And as June Christy fans, someone whom we owe a great debt to. For fans of June Christy, especially those fans like me who have spent years searching for things about her, rereading the same old rehashed articles, scrutinising liner notes, blog posts, scavenging for crumbs. The greatest gift that we've ever been given as fans didn't come from the authors, the historians, the critics, the reviewers. And that's no criticism of the few professionals that have kept June's flame alive. My friend, James Gavin, I'm not name dropping here, am I? My good friend, New York Times bestselling author, James Gavin, has written some absolutely wonderful articles about her Capitol Record albums, hosted on his website. If you haven't checked them out, check them out. Jazz historian and author Stephen Harris has posted some absolutely brilliant posts on the Stan Kenton Appreciation Group on Facebook. Again, if you haven't seen them, join and check them out. So there have been moments of light, but very few and very far between. The majority of articles about June Christy online are just rehashes of the same body of text from, her Wikipedia page. And that's all we as fans would have, if not for one beautiful man who, over 20 years ago, wrote a letter. With his one act of kindness, I think this man has done more for June's later career biography and in turn her legacy than I think anybody else has ever done. And once I've read the letter to you, I think you're going to agree. This letter was lost. And last night when I had this change of heart about what my first video here should be, I thought, I want to revive the letter. I want it to be given back to the fans. Now, this wonderful man that I speak of, his name is Scott Luster. He's the son of Jack Luster. Jack Luster was the brother of Shirley Luster. I don't know how many of you will recognise the name Shirley Luster. We know her as June Christy. So June is Scott Luster's aunt. And Scott Luster enjoyed a warm relationship with his aunt and his uncle, Bob Cooper, the famous saxophonist. If you've ever looked for June Christy videos on YouTube, sometimes if you're lucky, you'll spot a little comment from Scott Luster. He introduces himself as June's nephew, and he'll leave really intelligent insights. The guy's clearly very cultured. He knows about classical music and he's very worldly. Sometimes there's an anecdote or a memory he shares, which is really touching, about his family, his relationship with June. Those comments, oh, I've screenshotted them all. Right click save, cha cha cha. And I will share them with you in future videos. But the biggest thing he's done for the fans was write this letter. In fact, he wrote 2 letters. I'm going to read you one of them today, which was sadly lost when this unofficial June Christy website, now defunct, vanished. The man that ran this website was Jim Smith. And I imagine if there's nobody there to pay the domain name or the subscription, well, the website is terminated, deleted, I don't know, but it's lost. And as I said, there was more 20 years ago than there is today. And it's my mission here on this channel to bring this all back to life, to bring this all back to you guys. In these letters he's written to Jim Smith, thanking him for Jim's hard work, Scott tells us about his aunt in later life, in what was her semi-retirement, an era of June's life, the last 2 decades of her life we don't really know that much about, well, until he writes these letters. In these letters he shared her perspectives on her legacy, her surprise that fans still reached out to her, her humility and shock that people still remembered her work and wanted to thank her for her artistry. So Scott's act of kindness in writing this letter to a fan has given us our best look at June's inner life, her sense of self, her quiet priorities, and the way she held her legacy. And these letters are really comforting for me. We see June not as some tragic, washed up retiree. We see June as a woman who had her cake and indeed got to eat it. So this is just a quick aside, something I wanted to share with you, not connected with Scott's marvellous letter. I just wanted to share this anecdote with you. It's from one of these downbeat magazines. I will cover these downbeat magazines in a future video for you guys, but they're fantastic. They really are. And they really did follow not just her early career with Stan Kenton, but way into her solo recordings at Capitol Records. Here we go. This is something unrelated, but equally fascinating. June, as you may know, had performed in Japan, and still many fans of June's in Japan. I've had some success in translating this book. So there's a few revealing details in this book as well. There's so much that I'm going to share with you guys in future videos. This particular edition of Downbeat magazine, I think 1957, says June Christy shares some sharp statements. And they're not that sharp by today's standards, but I imagine in 1957 she sounded a lot more edgy than possibly our ears receive today. But yeah, definitely a woman with some bite and some confidence, which is great to see. So she's interviewed here by Don Gold, and he starts off referencing her as Shirley Luster wanted to be a singer. So as we know, June Christy, previously Shirley Luster, did come from humble beginnings, and I'll cover that early chapter of her life in probably my next video. These humble beginnings, I think, sets her up for a great perspective on fame. Here she talks about having a swimming pool, but she stresses it's not for prestige. I genuinely use my swimming pool every day, and she talks about having wanted a swimming pool since the age of 5 years old. So why am I sharing this with you? Well, when I say she's a woman who had her cake and got to eat it, look, she got her pool. She moves to Sherman Oaks in California, just a stone's throw away from Beverly Hills, no less. And at the end, she kind of makes this joke. She sort of alludes to the fact that if she had to pick between a house and a swimming pool, she might pick the pool over the house. You know, it's great. It's a cute interview, and I will cover this interview in a future video. So that was my little anecdote shared. I know semi-retirement sounds terribly sad. I mean, my God, when you read cause of death on the Wikipedia page, you know, kidney failure, you know, she wasn't this tragedy-bound character. But yes, the woman, in my opinion, gets the swimming pool, gets to have her cake and gets to eat it. I think she was a happy person with great perspectives on life, and that's how I want her to be remembered. Anyway, back to Scott's letter. So when people wonder about the semi-retirement and paint it as some sad thing, I think, no, she was swimming in her pool. And it's that unfair narrative that I want to push against here on this channel, that somehow the late, great June Christy fell into obscurity. We're left today with people on jazz forums referring to her later life as tragic, filling this information void with conjecture. And it's in Scott's letters that we see that that absolutely wasn't true. She lived a very rich life. I reached out to Scott 4 years ago and we exchanged a few emails. He was incredibly kind, incredibly forthcoming. He told me that he'd had some experience with radio. I'd suggested to him that we did a podcast, and he agreed that that would be a good idea. He was planning a trip to Europe and a house move. I was about to buy my first home, and before I knew it, 4 years had passed. Renovating, getting into debt, renovating, selling to clear the debt, moving again. I mean, those 4 years for me just evaporated in a flash. So now when the dust finally settles, I reach out to Scott again, and there was no reply. I felt that I'd missed my chance. I was kicking myself. If only I'd been less distracted with my own life and more... The good news I would learn when I joined the Stan Kenton Appreciation Group over on Facebook that jazz historian and author Stephen Harris, a couple of years ago, had the pleasure of speaking to Scott Luster for an hour on the telephone. One little detail that Stephen Harris was kind enough to share with us was that June's mother was an excellent seamstress. I knew that she was a great seamstress. I've got the Decatur High yearbook, so I've been contacting the children of people that might have gone to school with June, gone to school with Shirley. I didn't know how much she'd contributed to June's wardrobe. It's nice to think that when we see photos of her performing with the Stan Kenton band, that her mother had a hand in some of those costumes. I wonder for how long her mother helped her with her costumes, and that's a question I'd like to ask Scott. And I too have some interesting stories about that early dynamic with her mother, who was very concerned about her safety, understandably. Some cute anecdotes about those early concerns and what it took to convince Shirley's mother to allow Shirley to go forth and become June Christy. All this I look forward to sharing with you, with citations, with evidence, in future videos. On a side note, I would love to collaborate with Stephen Harris. He has so much information about her Stan Kenton years, and I'd like to think I have collected a great deal of information about maybe her later life. And I guess it's that imposter syndrome in me. You know, I have this inner voice saying, who the hell are you to even contact these authors and jazz historians? And the sad news is, recently when I got to communicate with Stephen Harris, asking him about his book, he said that for the time being, at least, it was cancelled. He said there simply wasn't enough information out there to write a book. Stephen Harris did mention that he's thinking of maybe doing a video biography, and I really hope he does. I believe he's the most qualified person to do that. In the meantime, you'll have to put up with me. In my personal opinion, there can't be enough information about June Christy out there. Mr. Harris probably took notes, if not a recording of his interview with Scott Luster. And I've kind of made peace. I mean, it's his research. I might never be privy to that conversation they had. And I was feeling sad. I was feeling a bit glum. I had thought that what I wanted was to get to speak to Scott Luster, June's nephew, get my hour with him. It dawned on me that I didn't need an hour of his time. I need to thank him. I'm going to read his letter for you, and you'll understand why we all need to thank him. Scott, I don't know if you'll ever see this video, but I want to say thank you on behalf of the June Christy fans of today and on behalf of all the June Christy fans that are yet to come. I plan to revive Jim Smith's website here. This information is going to live on in these videos, and new fans can share these videos, re-upload on other platforms, and the story will live on. Your letter, June's legacy, will live on. 25 years ago, Scott, my former younger self was confused. Why isn't there more information about June online? What happened to her after she retires? Your letter to Jim Smith is the biggest gift I could have wished for. It's time to bring the letter back. People are framing that retirement, that semi-retirement, as a bad thing. She surprises everyone and releases this long overdue album. You know, she's in semi-retirement and she's back and her voice had changed. This great album is called Impromptu. And yeah, her instrument had changed. She sounded different. To this day, that album is really divisive. And this already, dare I say, controversial, I don't get it, I love the album, but this controversial album's legacy wasn't helped when a fan leaks an email sent by her pianist on the album, the great Lou Levy, who criticises the album. That email has circulated on jazz forums. I know, and I can provide evidence, and I will give you citations, that June was really proud of the album. I think hearing her sing Everything Must Change, it's an acting tour de force, something I don't think she could have pulled off 20 years before. But the point I'm trying to make is people seem to have this innate and inexplicable fear of aging. Yeah, June had changed, but so had the world. Jazz had fallen out of fashion. She was older, but she also had less to prove. I think Impromptu contains some of her finest work. I know that's a controversial opinion, perhaps, by those obsessed by the cult of youth. Today, I see this on jazz forums where people are referring to the last couple of decades of her life as her final tragic years. Like I say, an information vacuum. Anything can come along and fill it. I mean, tell me when the final years aren't tragic. You know, we're all going to get old, right? So yeah, June had kidney failure at the end of her life. She was likely on dialysis for those last few years. What was it Betty Davis said? Growing old isn't for sissies. Or growing old is no place for sissies, I think she said. But before we get to Scott's letter, bear with me. Let's put this in perspective. In 1985, June goes to the south of France and tours the south of France. Okay, it was an interesting career choice, possibly at that point in her life. And I'll do a deep dive video into that particular tour. She did a couple of dates that same year, festival in Oregon. I don't see her end as any more tragic than mine or yours will be. And it's Scott's letter that proves that. And it's Scott's letter that fills that void, not with drama, but with dignity. Okay, I'm about to read the letter. Scott, thank you again. You've done your aunt proud. Scott's letter. I am absolutely delighted to see such a nice, interesting, and complete homepage for my aunt. She was quite special, if perhaps a bit fragile from all the wear and tear. In the things I've read about her, one common theme came through. That was her warmth on stage and the genuine affection she had with fellow musicians. Her friends were always musicians and artists, starving or otherwise. Talent was what she was drawn to. Every time I meet a jazz artist who knew her, they always have something nice to say. She was no prima donna at all. If anything, she was detached and blasé about her fame. June was agnostic. She practiced no formal religion. June was well versed in religion and philosophy, however. She read extensively on Eastern religions. Her attitudes were at least somewhat shaped by Buddhist teachings. In the early 1950s, June had more offers for work than she could deal with. However, June was never particularly interested in the pop medium. She and Pete Rugelow chose interesting, if eclectic, songs for her artistry, much to the chagrin of Capitol Records. As a result, those post-Something Cool albums, although considered classics today, frankly never sold the numbers that Capitol had hoped for. There has long been a struggle for the truly gifted artists between music that moves off the shelves and music that speaks to the artist. In June's case, she sold enough that they worked with her, but not enough to become a pop icon like Doris Day or Frank Sinatra. Your letter brought out some of the frustration I've heard over the years by other Christy fans about the lack of information on her work, appearances and life. This was the result of my aunt's basically resolute desire to avoid publicity, and from around 1968 onward, she avoided work except for when she wanted to buy something. When June's agent Carlos Gastel died, in that same time frame, June went happily into semi-retirement. At tax time, or when she wanted to redo part of her home, she'd take a gig for a week or so, create some excitement that she was coming out of retirement, and then essentially stop working again. Bob Cooper, told me once when he was in St. Louis touring with Frank Sinatra around 1972, I think, that June was thinking of accepting an engagement at the Long Beach Auditorium, a popular venue for artists just south of LA, but he wasn't sure she would do it. It puts her under such pressure to perform, he said. I really wish she would promote her career a little more actively, but she just has no interest, was his quote at the time. I had a series of discussions with June and Bob about their lives and careers from 1987 to June's death in 1990, when business took me to Los Angeles. I learned June's take on her place in jazz. She was largely unimpressed with her work. She thought she was recording standards to be at the time she recorded them, and then watched the business turn away from jazz to rock and roll. She felt her work was good, but becoming forgettable, and literally amazed at the number of fans who would still write to her expressing their adulation. June is enigmatic to many of us. She cared little for fame, but liked to live well, didn't take herself very seriously, but chose songs to record with the same level of care one would take when selecting a name for a child. She had a lovely home in the hills of Sherman Oaks, overlooking the valley, and in her later years left it less and less. She lost any urge to paint, a hobby she was incredibly good at. Even towards the end, they still never had to wait for a table in a restaurant, and June seemed quite content with her existence. She was a wonderful influence on me. As a kid, I saw her on television. It was always an event when she came to town. She was one of those personalities that changes the dynamics of a room just by walking into it. She exuded class and elegance. Thanks so much for your work in helping keep my aunt's footprints alive. I loved what she did in music. Named my daughter Christy in tribute to June. June teased me that I may live to regret that choice. I feel like she was a wonderful, positive influence in my life. Scott Luster. When I look at this body of research, I am surprised. Information I've been squirreling away like some demented squirrel. Things that are no longer hosted online, things that have come and long gone. All of it saved. First on recordable CDs, and then recordable DVDs, and then on external hard drives, and now on file sharing clouds. I'm not boasting. All that I have collected is yours. I'm here now, fellow June Christy fans. I might not be the most qualified guy for this job, but I'm here. And I created this YouTube channel in November 2025 to mark the centennial, 100 years. And this truly is a watershed moment. You will be blown away by all the information I'm going to share with you. We've all lamented how there just isn't enough information out there. If I'm successful in presenting all my research here in these video essays, I honestly believe we as fans would have finally succeeded in documenting her entire career effectively. No more will fans say, "It's such a shame there's not more information about her online." I think we can do it. I mean, just to give you a taste of what's to come on this channel, the most neglected period of her life, her semi-retirement, those last 2 decades, I can flesh out for you with friends, pets, dinner party menus, vacations to Mexico, favourite movies, a high school sweetheart who kept a scrapbook, light moments I can share with you where you'd assume there had just been dark. All of this is yours. I won't sit on it any longer. It's a time for action. It's a time for sharing. And I urge you, future fans, if you find this video, save it somehow and share it. Upload it on other video platforms. Keep these stories alive. Like and subscribe. Now, I don't mean to name drop, but James Gavin, celebrated author, New York Times bestseller, has agreed to contribute to our videos here in some way, in some shape or form. He's incredibly well connected, incredibly knowledgeable, which is an understatement, and an incredible June Christy devotee too himself. I hope too that I can convince Stephen Harris to join our motley crew here. His book, The Kenton Chronicles, is an immense collection of interviews. If you haven't read it, if you're interested in Stan Kenton, if you're interested in this ilk of musicians, it's a must-have in your collection. And another incredible resource comes from a friendship that I've been lucky enough to forge with the daughter of one of June Christy's friends. I mean, she has the most incredible memorabilia, but it's the scraps, the notes, the letters. We learn June's least favourite song when she was with Stan Kenton. We get these really candid insights. That's something I can't wait to dissect. Yeah, it's an exciting time. Scott, if you're out there watching this, again, thank you. I truly believe that this long, elusive biography that we've all been hoping for hasn't been lost to the sands of time, that actually we have enough. And it starts here.